Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Greg.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Approval of the county board minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion, I need a second. I got a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Tabitha, any additions or deletions?
No.
All right, well, I have an addition. We have a new video guy replacing for 1 month. He's in the back there.
For 1 month.
What's his name? Christian what? Christian Gans, you're on record. Welcome. All right, and at this time, we'll have a public hearing for the environmental health ordinance public hearing.
I need a motion. I'll
Oh,
give
did
make
I-
a motion to accept the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, no additions or deletions. All right, so I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Now we got it. Those in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Sorry about that, gentlemen. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, now we're gonna move on to environmental health ordinance public hearing.
So, Mr. Chair, we'll have Sarah come up, and if you want to give kind of a brief synopsis about what changes have been identified and what we're looking to, and then we'll open up for public comment.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
I'm here today for the public hearing on the environmental health ordinance change. Now, I did bring this PowerPoint to a planning meeting on August 27th that incorporated all of these changes. This hearing is only about the ordinance, not the policy, procedures, and fee schedule, but that was a part of that PowerPoint. So I don't know if you want me to go into those changes again, or if you just want to let me know if you have any questions.
Gentlemen, if you would, what would you desire? Maybe just give a brief?
Hit the high spots.
I don't know if you know what a brief is, but you know, do what you can just to make it for the people out there in TV land.
No problem. So for the first page, this is just an addition of the public water supply. We're required to have Safe Drinking Water Supply Act, so what we did is just combine the two ordinances into one. And so that's part of the changes on this slide. And the other changes are just some statute changes due to a new food code that went into effect on January 1st. This was just some statute changes and some wording changes for clarity and addition of the public water supply. So again, just some wording.
Okay,
Next one, again, is just some wording and some changes. We took out the spelling out of the process because we defined that more in the policy, so we just took that out of the ordinance to make it more brief. The next one was a recommendation from MDH in regard to the new food code, and then just another statute change. And again, just a recommendation from MDH in regards to a statute change, and then another addition due to the public water supply. And then the next page is the policies, which we're not going through today, so.
So primarily keeping up with current statute or MDH recommendations, because they review that. And they
Correct.
need to take a look at what it is we're doing, because that is a delegated authority from MDH.
Correct.
And so just keeping it up to date and making sure that we're, our local ordinance adheres to state statute and the addition of the public water supply component.
And we had to do two different departments review it. MDH with the food code and that section, and then public water supply was a separate department in MDH who also reviewed this. So two separate agencies or departments within that agency reviewed this.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to move on this.
I have a motion, I need a second.
Well, let's
Oh, yeah,
first
we
have a
have to-
public hearing.
Well, we can still,
Excuse me,
Yep.
I forgot about that
Yep, no
part.
problem.
I'll get a motion in a second, and I'll still open it up for a public hearing.
No,
No.
no,
We have to
you
have the
wouldn't.
public hearing first.
We're going to have.
Okay, but I have a question for Sarah. The fee schedule, when you say re-inspection fee, so the first time you go out, there's no charge to the, when you go visit a bar or something like that, there's no charge? But now, if they do have, here it's saying that if they go out again the second time, then it's $48 an hour, and then you change that to a flat fee of $150?
Correct.
And why would that be? Is that just gets with the times too?
Right, because typically, we don't have a lot of people that don't pass that regular inspection.
Right.
And so then if we have to go out another time to ensure that they're up to code, we just wanted to put something in place to accommodate for our time, our travel time, our staff time.
Understandable.
Yep.
Okay, all right. All right, at this time, we'll open it up to public comment. I'll ask 3 times if anybody has any public comment. And then I'll also refer to our administrator if there's any mail and written. So at this time, is there any public comment? It's first time. Is there any public comment on environmental, at this time, it's the second time for the environmental health ordinance? Third time, any comment on environmental health ordinance? I'll close the public comment. Deb, is there any mail or written comments?
I didn't get any, sir. Did you receive any
We did not receive
written
any.
correspondence? Nope.
All right, gentlemen, we have any more? Well, I'll ask for a motion in a second, and if any more discussion.
Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate now, I'll make a motion.
Perfect. I need a second, gentlemen.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll close that at 9:06.
And there is a clean copy of the ordinance in the RBA as well, so,
Sarah, thank you very much.
thank you.
Good job, Sarah, as
Thank you.
always, thank you.
Are you doing the public health report too?
I am not.
Who do you think is?
I wonder, that's why I'd look to my left.
Well, actually, we don't. This is the revision to the ordinance. There isn't any other item.
On the public
Next
health?
on the agenda is the,
So Fish Trap. All right, Fish Trap Lake Improvement District.
Thanks, Sarah.
Please stay, come up to the microphone, state your name for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. Your microphone.
Well, we've had, I am Tom Anderson. I am the chairman of the LID, and this is Chris.
I'm Chris Zeman, the treasurer for the LID.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You should all have a little packet up there that shows kind of the history since 2014, how our curly leaf has been treated. And we've actually had a couple of good years where the curly leaf has not propagated a whole lot. We've done some good treatment areas where we needed to. We also have been doing an assessment of veligers with a dip net for the little crustaceans that we don't like in our lake, of course. And we were surprised this year to find that over the last few years, we used to have like 45 veligers per leader. We barely had 1 or 2. So that's good.
What do you attribute that to?
You know, talking with Steve Nokomis a few years ago, he said your environment starts to adapt. And I think our fish, as the veligers and the smaller zebra mussels are present, the fish are learning how to eat them. So that's a good thing. I think that also the environment is changing a little bit. Gary had brought something up here a couple of weeks ago that with all the water run in, we've got a little bit of difference change in our water, that there might not be enough calcium in there. At the same time, we pulled up all our docks, and there's a lot more snails. I noticed small little snails on the dock posts, and maybe just 1 or 2 that I had on my dock posts that were zebra mussels, mature.
Maybe
So-
the snails are eating the zebra mussels.
Maybe they're competing for that calcium, who knows? But that's a good thing. This year, we had, our team changed up a little bit. I don't know if anybody knew, we did lose one of our LID members to a drowning this last fall, or a year ago. Wayne, who was a really good member of our LID. So we now have Renee Kruger, correct? Renee had taken Wayne's spot. And with that, we've been probably footing more calls about the change of that environment with more native plants and weeds. So I'd get a big call, just that littoral zone is what we call it, out so far, starts to become more clear. So the sunlight gets down there and we end up with a lot more coontail, water celery. So I get people that will call me and say, you know, I think we've got milfoil over here in one corner of the bay where it's just thick while it's coontail. And most know that they can rake some of that away around at least their docks and where they're swimming. But that's probably where we get maybe a little bit more of a change with the zebra mussels, the difference in water, and things like that. So, do you guys have any questions for us other than the fact that I'm going to turn it over to Chris and she's going to go through the running budget and then she can maybe explain a little bit more about our assessments and how those have changed.
Have at it, Chris.
You have before you, or should have, two documents. One is our current year-to-date financial statement. The other one
Yes, we do,
is
yep.
the running budget that has always been prepared previously to all of you. If you will look at our year-to-date, we started out with a beginning balance in January of $31,000. We have to date received $14,700 and some dollars for income. We have only expended $5,600 to date, which is leaving us with a closing balance of $41,000. Due to the Morrison County grant that was given to us through the Quad Lakes for AIS management this past year, and also to take care of our pre- and post-vegetation studies to determine where our invasive weeds are. We are going to continue to probably see, if the grant monies continue as they are, quite a significant ending balance. This year, because we could only treat 2.2 acres of curly leaf, and it has been on a steady decline to this point. Even though we had identified 16 different locations, or a total of maybe 16 acres, the DNR did not feel that the density of some of those pockets were sufficient to treat. So they only allowed us 2.2 acres, and it was near our public landing. So consequently, our cost this year was significantly decreased due to part of that AIS grant from the county. So with that being the case, and perhaps continuing the low density of the curly leaf going forward, and the significant balance that we seem to be having for dollars, we proposed on June 22nd at our annual meeting to the property owners that were in attendance, and it was a good attendance because the Lake Association's meeting follows immediately after our LID meeting. We proposed to them reducing our annual assessment for 2020 from $60 to $40. Nobody objected. And we will continue to review that going forward based on what, if any, grant monies are afforded to us next year, as well as what our density of curly leaf, and if, heaven forbid, there's any other invasive species that start showing up. Fortunately, we do not have spiny water flea, we do not have starry stonewort. Yes, we've got the zebras, but to date, there has been no scientific remedy proposed to really be able to get rid of them. And as Tom said, with the high water levels, it could very well have diluted the calcium, which is very critical for their shell production. And the shells this year have been much easier to crush, and there weren't babies, the villagers. There were some good-sized large ones, but those are probably at the end of their life cycle as well. So overall, reviewing the budget, reviewing our costs and whatever, if you will turn to our running budget, even though we've proposed $13,000 for next year,
Sorry.
the likelihood that that won't be necessary in its entirety is very strong. So we proposed to the property owners a reduction to $40 for next year's assessment on their property taxes, and we would ask that the commissioners agree with us.
I just would like to clarify, when you said you got a grant from the county, actually that grant is AIS money from the DNR given to us to distribute, so it's not coming directly from the county, so I just wanted to point that out. But otherwise, gentlemen, do you have any questions for Chris or Tom?
I got one question. We had talked a little bit earlier about high waters. Are the lake associations doing a little bit of work on making sure that the drainage going out of your lake and into your lake are clear? I know we've been doing a lot of county ditches and stuff where things have grown up for years, and it seems like we don't really pay much attention to that until our water starts going up. And, you know, if one lake cleans theirs out, the odds are it's gonna flow faster to the next lake. And are those things that you're looking at doing?
Fish Trap Lake, excuse me, the Property Owners Association is very watchful of those sorts of things. Brian Sams, who owns Campfire Bay Resort, is on the Property Owners Association board. He was the one this year that pursued getting the reissuance of that permit to cut the weeds out of Fish Trap Creek, or out of our lake by the dam. For years, Mr. Tower had that permit and would take the initiative to clean out that creek. After his passing, nobody really knew that there was such a permit in existence or that he had done it. Over time, and with the normal water levels, that whole creek dam area kind of started to fill in, and the reeds got more prolific and whatever. Had it not been for Brian's interest and desire and willingness to do that sort of thing, we probably would still be in trouble as far as water flow. But through his efforts, through Mr. Bukowski's efforts in the county to aid him in the removal of those and everything, we've got better water flow. And going forward, I can assure you all that we will continue to keep a close eye on that and put forth whatever efforts are necessary.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, I think that Brian too, with losing his beach, it's very important for him. He's been never ending going over there and looking at the flow. So it's nice that he's on that side of the lake. I think that we got a really good team between the LID, the association. We all talk and try to make sure that everybody's taken care of. I want to say that we have a heck of a team with the LID here. This was a tough year for me, where I had a gravely ill wife who finally received a lung transplant, life-saving procedure, and during all of that, this woman here helps a lot to take some of that I couldn't handle during that time. So we have a great team. I think our fish trap crew, we're all very good at communicating. So grateful, very grateful.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jazinski.
It sounds like you have a very active lake improvement district. And my anticipation is that we're all on the same page, is that we don't know how long the DNR grant, if you will, is gonna be in existence. And I'm very clear, I understood your numbers, 60-40, I got it. I'm anticipating that your LID property owners, members, are also very clear on that if that DNR grant one day, which I'm guessing it will, dries up, that they'll probably have to increase this number again, maybe, and we're on the same page.
Yes.
That's all that I'm, very good.
We covered that again in the annual meeting.
Okay, very good,
The
thank
the
you.
unknowns are always there, and we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're as covered as possible without being overly zealous with.
Probably
this.
silly of me to even mention, but just for the sake.
And I think that we have our intent up and make sure that during those meetings, we want people to talk. Anybody got a problem with this? You know, there's some that said, look, I don't want it to go down.
Yep.
Because we want to make sure we're taken care of. You don't get too many of those. But when you do, we talk about it, and I think that, you know, so I think you always have to have those devil's advocates out there. But we want to make sure that everybody's heard. That's important, or you have trouble.
Mr. Chair, you know, it shows your responsibility. I mean, it's just like here, when you can go down, we need to go down. If we gotta
Right.
go back up, we need to go back up.
Yeah.
That's how they gain trust in you, by doing those types of things, because that's what you're watching is the budget and what does it take to operate this place.
Absolutely.
And
I
our
thank you for that.
predecessors have also been judicious with
Yep,
that.
yep.
We've had a little bit of this,
Yep.
but we've never, knock on wood, to my knowledge, ever had to exceed $60 assessment to this point. And hopefully that will continue.
Yeah, that's nice.
Well, thank you for
And you
that.
brought up Renee Kruger as your new lid member. She's a very good friend of mine, and she's a go-getter, so
Yeah.
you got a big asset to your lid there
Yeah.
for her too, so.
Mr. Chair, I just have one other question. Our friends from Lake Alec were here last week or the week before, and they talked about bog stuff. Do you, on Fish Trap, do you deal with bogs, floating bogs?
We do, but, you know, I talked with Kyle from Action Doc. He's been helping with the removal of this large one that they just had recently over at Alec. And in that conversation, I started talking about the idea of if that happens to us. And he said, you know, we've been going through all these lakes, and Alec has 8 times more cattail bogs than you guys have. When we get them, they're small.
Okay.
And they're not something that creates a real big problem, other than the fact that with the high water, they were getting stuck over there by the bridge.
Sure. Very
So-
good, thank you.
Gentlemen,
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
All right, I have a motion to move the 2020 budget as presented to the Fish Trap Lake Improvement District. I need a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Very much.
Yep, have a nice Thanksgiving. It's right around the
Yes,
corner.
you guys too. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much. Be safe out there, stay out of the snow,
Yeah. You don't want to see that.
not too loud.
Land Services, Amy,
Hi, Amy.
what do you have for us today?
I have a couple of things today.
I
The
see
first
that.
one is to consider the conditional use permit for David Hubner. This is to expand to a Tier 3 beef swine feedlot. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with 5 conditions. And those are to abide by local and state law, notify road authority when hauling manure during road restrictions, abide by the good neighbor and feedlot order minimization plans. Mortality composting shall be relocated to the beef stacking slab prior to increasing the cattle numbers, and the feedlot owner shall notify the feedlot officer. of
Gentlemen, I'll
manure
ask for a
cleanout.
motion with the 5 conditions for the
So move, Mr. Chair.
conditional, that's in permit in front of me. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And the second item I have is to approve the purchase of a plotter, which is a large-scale printer. This was discussed and approved at the Budget Committee meeting. This would not exceed $9,000, and it was brought to my attention, we actually have 2 funding sources for this, and so the first one would be to utilize a capital equipment fund. But the other one is this, it was brought to my attention by the recorder and also the county administrator, that this would be an eligible expense for the technology fund out of the recorder's office. And so that would be another source of funding for this item.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Amy, and I have a pretty good grasp on what that plotter is. I wonder if you can just kind of explain
Yes.
one more time, really what
Yes.
it does and who it benefits besides your department.
Yes, good question.
Please.
Well,
Thank
it essentially is a large-scale printer, so we can print large-scale maps and other items. I know we've done schematics of the building and have printed them off on that. We print the highway plans for road construction off. We also do custom map requests from the public on that. So it's utilized by a lot of the departments within the county, and we're tapping our staff to do that. And then also, we do provide that service to the public when they're ordering a map of a certain size. So, yeah, that's what we do.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd recommend, after discussion, after we had the budget meeting and talked more about this, that the Recorder Technology Fund would be a good use of, good use for those dollars, or this purchase would be a good use for those dollars. And we're limited in what those funds can be used for. It's a decent supply, things that are land related in technology. It's a good avenue for that. So I would recommend tapping those funds that are saved, that are there for things like this, instead of the general capital equipment fund being there available in the recorder's fund. And
That's a
Eileen's
good
aware of
point.
that.
The recorder fund, could you explain where that money comes from?
Yep,
Deb can go ahead and do
when
that.
when documents are recorded, there's part of those costs or fees that are charged go to both a compliance fund and a technology fund. The compliance fund, again, has different use restrictions, primarily to ensure that we are recording documents and turning those documents over in a timely manner. So making sure staffing is up to speed. If we'd ever fall behind and not meet the parameters set, we can utilize that set of funds. And the technology, somewhat similar in terms of making sure that there's technology to support that process of document recording, to make sure it's timely, and people are being able to conduct that business in a fashion that is timely. So those fees set by the state are collected and available to counties to use in certain regards, primarily to help that process.
Mr. Chair, is that a board action to get that money from that pot, if you will?
If I may, Commissioner Jelinski, the description says take it from the capital equipment fund. In this case, if you want to amend that motion, taking it out of the recorder fund.
I don't know that there's a motion.
There isn't a motion, but if you would make that money for, or make that motion.
I would move on that because that simply makes sense.
Second.
All right, so based on the motion and the second that we are amending the capital equipment fund and we're putting in the recorder fund, is that correct?
Recorder technology.
Recorder technology
Printer
fund.
we got is broken.
It is, so we
Well, they
will-
only last for so long. That's just how it works.
That's why we're getting a new one, is all I'm.
Gentlemen, this is something we discussed about at the planning session. It's not like it's, Amy's putting it on her lap.
Yeah, the current printer is 12 years old, so it's,
Oh, wow.
it
Well,
doesn't
you
owe us
smile.
much.
We get 12 years out of this one.
Putting money away for this too, so.
Yes.
Doing it the right way.
Gentlemen, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.
Miss Amy.
So do we,
Look at, look at who just walked in the door right on time.
oh
That'll
my
be
gosh.
In the administrators, the appointments for the Board of Adjustment and all that will be in the administrator's report. So, yes, that'll be taken care of today. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Chelsea, you're next.
Magically, she appeared right at the exact
Right.
moment we needed her.
She's even
Chelsea,
early.
good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Good.
And what do you have for us this morning?
I have a couple of things this morning. So first on the agenda, I am asking for approval for the Minnesota Trail Assistance Program Agreement for the fiscal year 2020. This is the Morrison County Recreational Trails Association snowmobile trails. So the agreement to sponsor them was approved April 9th of 2019. And then this would also authorize the disbursement of funds as they're received in our office.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I need any more discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
this is, we act as a pass-through, kind of, is all we do with the funding, right?
That's correct, yep.
Very good, thank you.
Commissioner Wilson, did you make the motion?
Made the
Yeah,
motion, I'm
okay.
sorry.
All right, did that answer your question? I wasn't paying attention, but I hope we got that
Yes.
answered.
Taken care
All
of.
right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next on the agenda, I'm requesting the approval for the ICS and CDARS agreement with Unity Bank to have additional investment options. Again, Commissioners, I just want to mention that this is an agreement that Unity Bank has, and even if we didn't have this agreement in place, I could still invest over the $250,000. I would then just have to have additional pledge agreement securities in place, which I do in other banking entities. So it's just another option that Unity Bank has for us.
Gentlemen, I have a motion and a second.
So moved.
I have a motion. Any more discussion?
I got a question, Mr. Chair. Now, just because we're doing this here, it doesn't mean, you're still gonna invest with other banks in our county on programs and stuff, right, where you put money in?
Yep, so this is just giving us a little bit more of an option to have more money locally.
More
So
flexibility.
more flexibility, so say maybe we wouldn't have, maybe we'll move money from some of our brokers over into the CDARS program. But we do banking with our local banks, and that's always on my forefront, to give those local banks a phone call to see what we can do, what they can offer, if they can do any more. I always reach out to them to see what our best interest is.
And Chelsea, I appreciate, because you had a representative from Unity Bank here at the planning session. Again, this was well vetted, good information was given to the board. And again, I see no problems here. I think it's an advantage. I think it's a very good thing for the county to have another option to invest their monies.
And
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, if I could, in the agreement for the CDARS, it shows that Bank of New York Mellon acts as an agent with the CDARS program. So it's one of the same almost as if I were to call our broker from Wells Fargo and utilize Wells Fargo as an agent or Edward Jones as an agent. It's almost that same practice. So if that makes you feel any better.
Gentlemen, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, this discussion came about because a bank normally has $250,000 that we're insured for through the FDIC, correct? And
Correct.
now we can do this, we can put more money in there because it's insured over the 250 with other people. Am I correct on that?
That's
Kane?
correct.
Yep. So that's why we did this, so you don't have to be moving money all over for this 250 guarantee.
Correct.
Just take a little
And-
bit off her plate and make your plate larger to do something else.
Yes, it's expanding our options, that's correct. And to add to that, again, even if we didn't have this agreement or this program in place, we can still invest over the $250,000. We would just have to have pledge agreements in place to ensure our money is safe, so.
And again, we discussed the opting in and opting out, and, so this is all kind of same as most of the other investments we do, so. Gentlemen, any more discussion? I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next, I have gambling permits. I'm requesting the approval for an exempt permit to St. Joseph Church of Morrill to hold a bingo on December 1st, 2019, and a bingo raffle on March 1st, 2020 at the Parish Hall.
I'll need a motion for those two
So move.
permits. I have a motion, I need a second.
I'll second it. Mr.
Any more
Chair.
discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I also had one that I didn't read off, but if you're fine with approving both of them all at once.
There's two of them you
There
have.
was two, yep,
Yeah.
I just read the
Yep.
one, the other
Oh, I
one
know.
was for Sullivan Lake Association. so-
Yeah, but I did say
And
two.
Mr.
Yep,
Chair, I was
you
very
did.
clear on that. I knew what we were doing here.
Okay,
I was just a little faster.
Sometimes they like to rush things along.
I see that. And next I have the approval of warrants.
Okay, do we, no.
To pay all the bills.
All right, I need a motion, a second. This is going to be a roll call,
I made a motion.
and I need a second. Those in favor, Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine, Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Myself is aye, motion carried.
Thank you.
Anything
Chelsea,
else?
thank you very much.
That
you,
is
Chelsea.
it. Thanks, you guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
You too.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest we take just a brief break and wait for Mr. Bukowski if you'd like.
We can do that. We'll see you in 5 or 10.
Excellent.
He's on his way.
Morning, so I'm
Just-
tired.
Just remember how I.
I know, and I know I can't do it like that.
I'm sure you can improve it.
Interrupt people and.
Hey,
Don't let 'em
Tabitha,
Yes.
forgot my password.
Christian, I did put that logo up if you want to go to that. You're welcome to.
Do you think they know it?
It's you, but
No, but I think they could probably help you get into it.
It's still the one
Trying to
that they
remember
gave
that.
me when I first started.
Here's, I'll give you a clue. I'm passing.
They wrote his down.
Well, I don't write my shit down.
I just can't believe
Here's what
I
I do. I go under my own phone number. I put it in my phone number, so under Randy, contacts. I got every damn password in there.
oh, I got so many.
All my passwords. So when they change, because they do change, you just have to make sure you change them. If you, it's kind of a habit.
It just bothers me that I'm fucking losing my mind.
Hey, I was losing my mind.
Hey, it happens when you hit 30.
I forget, well, it's gonna be a roll.
I thought it was 007889, but
We
79.
spent $9,000 out of the technology fund and we didn't roll call it.
Why didn't you do this to me?
Because I didn't think about it. Deb asked me afterwards and I'm like,
Say, yeah, we did.
clearly on video we didn't. Yeah.
Greg, how you doing? Pretty good. Haven't seen you for a while.
How's the healing process? And at our age, you know, things just heal so much slower. I've been really lucky so far. If I was braces, I don't have them once a day, but if I walk a really long ways, or when I'm doing physical stuff on the farm, I wear them just in case.
Yeah.
The legs actually do reasonably well, but all you gotta do is take a wrong step.
That's where I have to be real careful now. I've got to think when I walk.
Yes,
That you're doing stuff right.
that's true. Isn't that something? I mean, at this age, we literally have to watch everything. Everything is at a second. You have to give it a second thought. That's one reason I got out of the mountains. I had the best job in the world. I really did, walking around the mountains, winter and summer. Well, that's good. East side. Within a certain distance. And but the trouble is, it's so
Sometimes our mind catches up with us. There's just certain things that just, I don't know. I don't know why we're more.
I just can't do this just to help out. So I find myself tying myself if I have to go on a road roof or something. I find myself tying myself off.
Well, we take that extra precaution, or I've got my cell phone with me. So somebody can call somebody if I do. We just think of that stuff when I see it.
No, I appreciate that.
Oh, I think we can shut it off. We can shut it off. Oh, it doesn't record, I think.
for me.
Public Works, Steve, what do you have for us this morning?
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I can get in yours now.
No, this is.
Didn't even see you come in, Steve.
Boy, I snuck in there when you were
Sorry about that.
conversing. I do have a number of items for your consideration, action items today. Obviously, we're getting to the end of our construction season. We have a number of projects that we have completed that we'd like the board to authorize us to make final payment to our contractors. The first resolution is for contract 285 with Anderson Brothers Construction. That work was in Commissioner Blaine's district. County State Highway 1, County State Highway 11, County Road 217, and County Road 218. They did a very good job on that work. It is complete, and we'd ask the board to adopt the resolutions.
This will be roll call votes, gentlemen. I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, Commissioner Lemire,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine. Myself is aye, motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the next resolution is to authorize final payment to Groove Tech for contract 289, which was the installation of stop bars at various locations throughout the county. Those are the high reflective material that gives people notice that they're in a stop condition. We'd recommend that the board authorize this resolution.
Gentlemen, this will be a roll call vote. I need a motion and a
I'll
second.
move on that, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Blaine. Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Myself is aye, motion carried.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the next resolution for contract 1902 for all things asphalt. This is the Durapatch or spray patch crack filling that we conduct under contract. It's maintenance activities for some of the worst cracking and dipping that takes place following the cracking that allows us to extend the life of our pavements. This work was completed and is acceptable, and we'd recommend the board approve this resolution.
Again, this
So
will be a
moved.
roll call vote. I have a
Second.
motion. I need a second.
Second.
Commissioner Wilson. This is a roll call vote.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, contract 1806 is contract with Eagle Construction for the repair of the piers on the Sioux Line Bridge over the Mississippi River, and also the repairs to certain damages to the abutments. The work has been completed. This was one that we were able to view with the board. We would recommend that the board adopt the resolution so we can make final payment.
Another roll call vote. I need a motion and a second. I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Just one question on that. Is that the money that we got from Gazelka and Kresha?
Yes, this contract was paid for by the bonding money that we received from the efforts of Gazelka and Kresha. But to me, it's one of the most important projects probably in a long time, because I think if that had failed, we would be looking at having to shut that structure
Tearing that
down.
down. Yeah, we stopped there and looked at it last
Looks really nice.
Yeah.
Friday, and it looked really nice.
Yeah, I wanted to say, thank you, Steve, for taking time out of your schedule to take us out to view that and to view some of the other road projects in that area at the same time. It helps us to stay up to speed with you on a lot of that work.
It was
Appreciate that.
another good situation in that it was a local contractor, Eagle Construction. It's kind of the work was quite unique.
Unique.
You're out in the river, and initially they were taking materials from the shore out to the first piers, and it was put on in 5-gallon buckets, and it took weeks to do it. Innovative, and they moved forward with what was called shotcrete, where they then pumped higher viscosity concrete at high pressures and built it up under that scenario, which took about 1 day to do each pier. once they had it all, all prepped and ready to go. So we were fortunate because Eagle's bid too was substantially lower than the second bid. So it's nice to have that one done.
And Mr. Chair, I think that we should add that's a bridge on the Camp Ripley Veteran State Trail that will connect, and it is a trail bridge, and without that segment, that trail would end right there. Would end or it would start right there if we didn't have the bridge there. The sewer line, I'm sorry, used the wrong term, but it'll connect eventually with Camp Ripley, but it's the sewer line trail. But if it wasn't for the bridge right there, I just don't know that there's gonna be a magic thing that's gonna say, whoop, a new bridge is there, because that would cost, I'm confident, gazillions of dollars. And we have this to work with, and we did get Gazelka and Creeshaw to bring bills, if you will, so we could get that funding. It's a great deal for everybody.
Appreciative of that.
And Mr. Chair, I was glad during the tour that Randy didn't actually push me off the embankment, just scared me. So that was appreciative too.
Anyway, also, Steve, what year was that bridge built originally? I think it was 1800 and something, wasn't it, or?
And I believe the structure is 1905.
Okay, so it's well over 100 years old, so it needed a little repair. And I apologize.
After ditch number 1.
Trying to push you up.
It's okay, I only screamed a little
We
bit.
were down there where the cross rocks.
Yeah, right.
All right, Steve, proceed, please.
Mr. Chairman, the last resolution relates to transfer of construction funds from one account to another. On our county stated highway system, we receive funds based on a number of different criteria. Those funds are split between regular and municipal, and then each one of those are split between our construction and maintenance. On the municipal construction side, you can have 2 years allotment in your account, and then the third year allotment, if you haven't spent it, you start to lose off of your needs, which takes funds away from future allotments. And so what this request is to transfer any amounts in excess of the 2 years that we may have in our account, so that we wouldn't find ourselves in a position where we'd lose any revenue. But that's what.
We vetted this in planning, the Public Works planning session. I'd like to move on this.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? This will be a roll call. If there's no more discussion, Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. That's
Steve,
all I
have a good week. Thank you.
Steve, thank you very kindly.
Steve, how about Highway 8? Is that about open?
Yes, we paid back the patches yesterday.
Okay.
And so all our work there we're buttoned up for the winter.
Sounds good, thank you.
Deborah, administration's report.
I have a few action items, and we'll conclude with a closed session, but we'll get through the calendars and everything if you don't mind prior to that. But the first action item is, it's the time of year we like to prepare for the coming year. And so out in front of you are proposed meeting dates for 2020. Of course, things can change if something comes up, or if there aren't agenda items for, say, a planning session, we'll cancel it. But wanted to lay that out there. Let us know if there's anything that you see glaring that won't work that you want us to take a look at. We did vet this through the auditor's office to make sure it aligned with bill paying cycles and such. So that's what we're putting out there. Anything that you see, let's
Anything
talk
jumps
about.
out for you gentlemen? All right, then we'll ask for a motion and a second
I'll make a motion.
to approve the 2020 county board meetings and the planning meetings. So I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, the only discussion that I would look for is I'm looking at Tabitha, and I will ask her, and she knows the question. Will you send that to all of our calendars? I knew you would, I just had to ask.
And then do I have to push it to either Commissioner Wilson or Commissioner Jelinski, then we'll have another reminder that there's a board meeting.
I think we figured that out, didn't we?
Crossing my fingers that won't happen.
Doubled up on the, will you accept something on your,
Oh, gotcha.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. But we have that taken care of, so I won't get multiple
Well,
Oh, you might.
that's not coming from our end, so it's as how it's set up on the phone. I know we kind of looked at some of those, but,
Well, you'll be sending it to us and we just accept it.
yep, you accept it.
You're gonna come each one individually, right? Each
Yes,
meeting date?
yep,
And then we all forward them to Randy.
Exactly.
All of us.
yes.
Then I got to decline. or
That
whatever.
we can do.
All right, you can.
All right.
Yep. Hey,
He did try to push me off the cliff.
I got a month and a half sitting in this chair, gentlemen, and we're going to turn it over to Commissioner Lemire.
All right. Next request is for an appointment for the Board of Adjustment, Marvin Treadle, District 5, replacing Mary Lang, effective November 5th. And two appointments to the Planning Commission, Brent Lindgren, District 4, replacing Bobo Tremba, and Nadia Gutwald, District 4 alternate, replacing Jacqueline Baloo.
Okay, gentlemen, you see the names? I have a motion. I need a motion and a second.
Make that motion.
I need a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you. We are in the middle of, or almost concluded, union negotiations for a number of our contracts. And as has been practiced, and I think a good management philosophy is that non-union folks are afforded the same general terms as what our union folks are. And so I'm asking that you approve the cost of living increase and respective salary charts for the non-union employees as indicated below for the 3 years coming up.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If I may, I will have a discussion. Deb and I attended the AMC meeting, and each county commissioner from our, 11 counties in our region, we're right in there with these union negotiations. You know, we're not too high, not too low. That's where I like to be. So as far as, they're entering in agreements with their unions, and this is right in there with them. So it's not like we're standing out because we're not giving them enough or giving them too much. I mean, we're right there with all the rest of the
And I think, Mr. Chair, your philosophy, and I've appreciated that, is really to take a look at what's reasonable in terms of human capital. I mean, by far, the people that work here are the largest expense because we are a service business. And so making sure we're being fair in what it is we offer is important. And I think that we need to go into talking with employees and working with employees to make sure we are paying attention to that, because the worst thing you can do to an organization is to not pay attention and to not be aware of what it takes to retain and attract good employees, but yet we are good stewards of tax dollars, and we need to make sure that doesn't, we don't want to overpay, but we want to pay what's important to pay to have good people here. And so I think we do a good job of working with our staff for that. And you do a good job of leading that and allowing that to occur.
Mr. Chair, and some of the other things we've noticed, that the counties that don't seem to keep up with this, all of a sudden they've got to have that 7-8% raise to get people back up there, and that don't set good with the people either.
No, it isn't easy to come back from that. And so I've appreciated your proactive approach on making sure you allow me to pay attention to that when working with union groups.
Gentlemen, I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? This will be a roll call vote. If not, Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Myself as aye, motion carried.
And then, Mr. Chair, the next action item I have is a resolution for a closed session, so I would recommend that you go through schedules first.
All right. Let's see.
November 10th through the 23rd.
November 10th to the 23rd. And at this time, I got it written down who I'm going to start with. So I don't, guess it's Mr. Wilson.
Sounds good, I was ready. On the 12th, we got a planning session at 8:30. The 13th, there's a department head meeting at 8:30,
When?
the 13th of November.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, that will have a vendor coming in for a demo on a software, so if those of you that are able to make that would be great, yep.
I've got the 19th county board meeting at 9 o'clock, community development at 12:15. On the 20th, I've got MTWCHB, which is the health board, up in Staples at 3 o'clock. And I've got a city meeting with peers on the trail over there at 1 o'clock,
And what day is that?
the same day, 20th. And then the 21st, I've got to go to that first committee with that RTCC with Region 5 up in Staples. That's at 10 to 12. And on the 22nd, I've got Mississippi Headwater Board in Walker at 9 o'clock.
All right, Commissioner Blaine.
The only thing I can add two things to, excuse me. On November 14th. Oh, no, excuse me, I've got that wrong, I'm sorry. On November 19th at 7 p.m., I'm meeting with Amy Kowalczyk in Cauldron Township at 7 p.m. that evening. Otherwise, that's the only thing I can add.
Thank you, Commissioner Blaine. Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, starting on the 12th of November at noon, I have a Towards Zero Death meeting at Public Health. And for information, at 1:30 that same afternoon, there's an extension has a land rent meeting, and that is at City Hall. I don't know that I'm attending that, but I remember putting that down from the extension meeting. On the 14th at 6 p.m., I've got a Trails Committee meeting, and that's going to be in the city of Pillager. On the 15th of November at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a Community Health Needs Assessment meeting. That'll be at the Ripley Room at St. Gabe's. On the 16th at 11:30 in the morning, I'll be attending a Partners in Policy Making. That's what it's called. That's going to be in Bloomington. And that is a social services type of a thing that I've participated in for the last X number of years, where you meet with challenged individuals, if you will, and give a perspective on the commissioner's end of it. And it's very well worth my time to do that. On the 18th, on the 19th, there's also a Thanksgiving dinner with social services at noon. On the 20th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a Hands of Hope meeting, and that's in Todd County. On the 21st, I've got an Armor State Emergency Communication Board meeting, Owners and Operators meeting in Alexandria. At 7:30 at night, I've got an Egg Society meeting on the 21st. And on the 22nd at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got an EMS Joint Powers Board meeting at the Stearns County Service Center in Waite Park. And Mr. Chair, that should be everything, I believe.
All right, Commissioner Lemire.
The 11th is Veterans Day, and the Yellow Ribbon Committee is hosting a 50K run out at Camp Ripley.
Oh, are you doing that, Mr. Lemire?
What time is that at?
7 a.m. starts.
Okay.
You guys want to join a team?
Say a
with me?
50K?
50.
50?
Imagine that.
I'll be there in mind.
That's 30 miles.
Wow.
You're doing that all yourself?
I ain't doing it.
Oh, I just said, are you doing it? You said, yep.
Want some water?
Well, I was kind of surprised. I was, yep.
No, I'd die. Then on the 12th, at 5:30, I'll be in Motley Township, at the Motley Township Town Hall for zoning issues. 7 o'clock that same evening, I'll be in Rosing Township, same zoning issues. You got me there. Got me the rest.
Okay.
Wait, Public Health on the 13th, 5 o'clock p.m. Then you got me.
Good to go?
Yep.
All right. And as far as myself goes, we have a Great River Regional Finance meeting at 5:30 in St. Cloud on the 19th. On the 21st, I have TCC additional 5:30 here in Little Falls. And then we move Soil and Water on the 22nd, which is a Friday at 9 o'clock due to, because Thanksgiving is on the Thursday the following, so. And that should take care of me. Sweet.
Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind, before we read that final resolution, I just need to take a minute.
Just a second.
Is there an airport meeting on the 21st?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because usually they have them on the,
I'm in December here.
oh, And then, Mr. Blaine, did you, on your calendar, you had the Region 5 on the 14th. Is that actually on the 21st?
Yeah, the one that I had on the 14th was that was the executive board meeting. Which, and I'm not going to that one. I don't typically, I have stopped there though in the past on my way through and visited with them. But otherwise, I think our Region 5 meeting is later in the month.
The 21st.
Yes.
Tabitha, on the airport, sometimes we don't have that meeting, and that day I will be at RTCC from 10 to 12, and that's in Staples, and the airport's at noon, so I will not be going to airport.
Okay.
Anything else on the schedule, General?
Nope, that's it.
All right.
I just need to take a minute to congratulate the Pierce football team. Both my sons played the Pierce football team. The 7th straight year in a row of the state football
Outstanding.
tournament entry, and it's been fun, and so.
That was on all our screens here?
Yes. I don't know how that happened.
Which one's your boys? Are they?
You know
on
what? Simon's been in crutches since the second game, so he's not there. Otherwise, those are all his buddies there. And Lewis is probably tucked behind a little bit, but he's,
Well,
there in
rumor has
spirit.
it they beat their biggest competition.
Yeah,
So.
well, we'll
We
see.
don't know
We'll
until
see.
somebody beats us.
So, yeah, it's fun. They've had success, like I said, 7 straight years in a row, and the program just keeps going, and they're a bunch of great kids, so I just wanted to
Good
say
advertisement
congrats.
for the county of Morrison that year that.
Yes, so, fun. The last action item, if you're ready, Mr. Chair, is a resolution to close the meeting. Morrison County, if I could just
Go ahead.
read that. Whereas Morrison County is involved in litigation in the following cases: Kevin and Patricia Casella versus Morrison County versus opioid manufacturers and distributors, and John and Lisa Wimmer versus Morrison County. And whereas the Morrison County Attorney and outside legal counsel have requested the opportunity to discuss litigation strategy with the Morrison County Board of Commissioners and has advised that the public discussion of such strategy would benefit the defendants and their counsel to the detriment, of the board in the litigation. And whereas the Morrison County Board of Commissioners desires to invoke attorney-client privilege and discuss litigation confidentially with the county attorney and outside legal counsel. Whereas pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, the board by resolution may close meetings as permitted by attorney-client privilege. Now therefore be it resolved, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners hereby closes the Morrison County meeting on November 5th, 2019, in order to discuss the status of pending litigation and receive a report on the status, and that's 10:10.
10:10. All right. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to.
So moved, Mr.
Motion
Chair.
to second.
Second.
All right, to have a closed meeting for the several cases that we have. So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, Mr. Chair, if we just take a minute and have everybody wind down.
Tyler, hope your week is a good one.
Did you want me to